So in August 2013 we had a planning application for a place of worship, which happened to be for a mosque. When it did come before council, what had transpired beforehand meant that we had over 1,000 objectors come to the council meeting. So highly contentious. We had over 1,000 written objections to the planning matter as well. And really the issue was because the mosque application was to be adjacent to a church, and that raised a whole range of social impact questions in relation to that. So initially I think that right around your right to practice religion and your cultural rights. Part of the debate came out though was that some members of the church community were saying that placing a mosque next to a church would infringe on their rights. So we had to consider were there competing rights at play, and we certainly sought legal advice in relation to that. And the conclusion we came to was that having the mosque next to a church didn't prevent anyone from practicing their religion.
Basically, we have provided council report to council for determination. Every report we have to table all the facts, all the assessment against human rights charter, and advise council provided with all the facts and all the assessments to make a proper determination on the application. It's more about giving them all the facts. Now, first of all, the application needs to be assessed against planning scheme. Okay. Now, the Charter of Human Rights required us as a council to consider. We must consider the Charter of Human Rights. Now, in the report, basically we have to assess against both the planning scheme and the Charter of Human Rights, and the conclusion was, it's consistent with the planning scheme, Planning Environment Act, and it's also consistent with the Charter of Human Rights.
But certainly in significant applications like this, human rights they do add value, because it is town planning is it's become a very broad sort of field, so it's got to consider a whole range of things, and human rights are fundamental. And what was particularly tricky with this application, which became clear in the ultimate VCAT decision, was that we had the church claiming a breach of their human rights, but to refuse the mosque would have been breaching their human rights. So it's not straightforward. We saw this as just a land use application for a place of worship next to another place of worship. At the time that this application was going through, there had been a previous mosque application gone through in Casey, I think. City of Casey. So we'd seen how that was dealt with, and so that had given us a little bit of an indication of how it may have gone and how different issues were dealt with. So there's plenty of information that's available.
I think the Charter was instrumental in helping councillors decide or understand how they had to make a decision in relation to this planning matter. It was, I think, a highly charged matter, sort of politically and emotionally. So having a really clear explanation in the council report for councillors to understand that the right for people to practice their religion is a fundamental human right, and that we can't make a planning decision based on someone's religion. I think in this instance it really helped councillors to clarify what the issues were when they're faced in the heat of the moment in a council chamber with 1,000 people expressing really strong emotions. For them to have a framework to remind them about why the parameters for how and why they make their decisions was really useful and helped to clarify what their job was in that instance. It would not be unusual in other circumstances for councillors to feel the pressure of that community sentiment and make a different decision. But having the framework, having the human rights component of the council report remind us around people's rights and remind us around the planning decision that was before council